Try and think of the good bits in J.A. Bayona's 2018 sequel Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I know it's hard, but maybe some of these come to mind. The fun opening set piece, the Mexican-inspired wanna of the gyrosphere going off the cliff, the scene where the heroes have to transfuse blood into a sedated raptor, the scene where the heroes have to extract said blood from a tranquilized Tyrannosaurus. What if I told you none of these scenes were in the original script, at least not in their final versions? When Bayona came onto the project, he saw room for improvement. He fleshed out the prologue, the gyrosphere wanna, and the raptor transfusion scene. And he fabricated the T-Rex extraction from whole cloth. He also changed this scene from a straight sale to an auction. I mean, Jesus. Imagine how bad this movie would have been without this guy. He's responsible for all the good ideas in the damn thing. But it's still bad. And yet somehow it's one of the highest grossing films of all time. So we should try to learn something from it, hey? This is Equipment for Living with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Alright, get your bearings. Fallen Kingdom is about, well, I guess it's about Claire Dearing again, right? She was the protagonist of the previous, also bad film. Her arc was from dead-eyed robot aunt to dead-eyed compassionate aunt. After a prologue in which some guys retrieve tissue samples from the stupid Indominus Rex thing everyone hated from the previous film, we get some really boring exposition delivered via newscast. In here we get a stunt cameo from Jeff Goldblum, and the introduction of the film's theme.
Do dinosaurs deserve the same protections given to other endangered species?
This movie will ask and answer the question of whether our creations have rights, which is a surprisingly interesting theme for such a dumb movie, and actually in the same vein as that of the original. After 9 long minutes, we finally catch up with Claire, who is apparently running a non-profit to save dinosaurs or something. She has 2 lackeys, Zia and, I had to look this up, Franklin, and I can't decide which one of them is more underwritten or more annoying. Zia is a vet for animals she's never seen before, kind of like Harding, except without the grizzled sense of experience or the gas-powered Jeep.
I'm in a gas-powered Jeep.
And Franklin is a computer geek, you know, like Lex, except infinitely less interesting, likable, or realistic. Just before minute 12, Claire gets a phone call. On the line is someone representing the estate of a wealthy old man called Lockwood. This is the call to adventure, the thing that disrupts Claire's tedious status quo and sends her on the journey of figuring out the theme. Do our creations have rights? Do these dinosaurs deserve the right to live? Claire travels to Lockwood's manor, where she meets with Lockwood's executor, Mills.
You remember?
Yes.
Wow, cool.
And if you think Mills's dialogue is on the nose, wait until Lockwood himself shows up.
Life teaches us some very hard lessons, doesn't it, Claire?
James Cromwell is a fine actor, and he tries, but his material is so devoid of subtext that it makes you want to eject the disc and go for a walk in the rain. Along the way, we are introduced to a girl called Maisie and her governess Iris. Riffing off 1997's The Lost World, there is a briefing scene. Lockwood, via Mills, is asking Claire, via her agency, to round up some dinosaurs from Isla Nublar before the island's volcano erupts, killing everything. Claire is eager, but at minute 17 we get a bump. She needs to recruit Owen Grady. I just want to point out that Star Wars, The Terminator, and Back to the Future all have bumps at minute 17, and that J.A. Bayona used to teach film at a university. Make of that what you will. Claire and Owen ended the last movie seemingly as a couple, so of course the writers threw that out for this film, because they can't think of a source of tension or conflict for the characters now that they've resolved the romance. So Claire and Owen butt heads, and thankfully Chris Pratt is allowed to be goofy this time, but not even his megawatt charm can save this turkey. He refuses the mission at first, but then watches some footage of his pet raptor Blue as a baby, and decides to join in. I would like to take a minute here to mourn the concept of scary raptors. Everything about them used to be predatory and menacing and relentless. Now they are just dogs, and even show affection to Owen. There's a scene of Maisie annoying Iris for some reason, and then our heroes fly to Isla Nublar. On arrival, they are greeted by mercenary escorts, because we all remember how well that worked out in The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, right? We go through some symbolic gates and step outside our armoured vehicles to gawk at an itinerant brachiosaur. Notice how shooting on a longer lens in the cinemascope ratio, not to mention with dull digital photography, makes the brachiosaur seem sort of less exciting here. Compare it to the wide-angle, widescreen film brachiosaur of the original, and tell me which one has more emotional impact. At minute 29, 25% in, Claire uses some hand scan thing to get into the park's systems. This is the break into Act 2. The mission from Lockwood, starting with the call at minute 12, was to access the park systems and track the dinosaurs. Claire's palm print here is the crossing of the threshold into the world of that mission. Very early in the honeymoon, Owen tracks down Blue. The two kind of reconnect. Blue will help embody the film's theme, so will act as our B character here. After all, she is one of the creations whose rights we are debating. Surprise! The mercenaries betray everyone and kidnap Blue. Wheatley, the head mercenary, tranquilizes Owen and leaves him to die on the island. We get a reminder that Maisie exists, remember? And then we get a classic honeymoon moment. A a scene of slapstick as a tranquilized Owen tries to escape encroaching lava. It's funny, but it's also completely out of place in this franchise. Claire and Franklin narrowly escape a barely recognizable baryonyx. This reconstruction looks at least a couple of decades out of date. And then the volcano really starts going off like a frog in a sock, and although there's a lot of action, some of it even exciting, nothing of story consequence transpires. So let's skip almost 10 minutes until the next relevant scene. The mercenaries are shifting animals off the island on container ships. Our heroes manage to get onto one, and then the movie pulls one of its most obnoxious tricks. Just like before when the slapstick comedy was unearned and unwarranted, this moment where the Brachiosaurus dies is effective but does not belong at all. If you want to be charitable, let's say this Brachiosaur is basically expressing its right to exist. The emotional response we experience to its death tips the argument in favor of yes, our creations deserve rights. But using a tragic moment of melodrama is a lazy way of making an argument, and tonally does not sit well alongside the relatively lightweight honeymoon scenes surrounding it. When I saw this movie in the cinema, this was the moment I realized that this movie is not salvageable. Despite Bayona's best efforts to elevate the writing, there was no indication of a sophisticated intelligence thrumming through the screenplay. After becoming irredeemably obnoxious, the film starts digging its hole even deeper, introducing here the idea of a dinosaur auction, as well as a new, even stupider hybrid than last time. Back on the cargo ship, Blue is dying. At minute 57, 49.6% through, the heroes have to shift direction to save Blue's life, remembering that Blue is the B character. The stakes are raised and a timer is set. If they don't find blood for Blue, she'll die fast. And the only available blood nearby comes from the T-Rex. This sequence is generally a lot of fun, thanks in no small part to the outstanding use of animatronics. That's one thing Bayona brought back to the franchise after an almost exclusively digital entry last time around. Real materials on set that interact with the actors and the light and just feel more present than CGI tends to. Thanks, J.A. And then things get worse. The T-Rex is half awake, Maisie shows us more footage of Blue's childhood, then has a run-in with the new hybrid, Mills kills Lockwood, Owen and Claire are captured trying to follow the mercenaries to wherever they're going on the mainland, auction patrons start arriving at the estate, Owen goads a Stiggy Moloch into breaking them out, and they link up with Maisie, whose grandfather has just been murdered. And at minute 84, or 75% through, Claire and Owen find out about the Indoraptor, the new hybrid for this movie. For Claire, this moment constitutes the low point. Her original mission was to preserve dinosaurs, or something. Now, not only will her dinosaurs be locked up in cages, this one will be sent out into the world as a weapon. It's not a very strong low point, but this movie is kind of bad like that, so what can you do? Also, I don't need to point out how stupid this idea is, right? That Mills's grand plan for creating a superweapon is to make a large, expensive, dangerous animal that kills something, but only when you point a gun at it, when instead you could just point the gun at something and pull the trigger and kill it. In the soul-searching moment after this, there is another slapstick beat for children, as Owen looses the Stiggy Moloch on guests in a bid to escape. And Levine lets the Indoraptor out. His death is earned because he violated the theme. Throughout the movie, he's been pulling teeth from restrained dinosaurs. He hasn't given these creations any rights. It makes sense that he dies, but I hate the way the Indoraptor smirks before it kills him. Note this is in stark contrast to the previous film where Zara's death was pointed out by basically everyone as being really egregious. It's because she didn't violate the theme. The film lurches on, revealing that Maisie is a clone of Lockwood's deceased daughter.
Wow, cool.
By the way, shout out to Isabella Sermon, who plays Maisie. She's a great performer and I hope she has a wonderful future once she's put these wretched films behind her. Anyway, during this reveal, at minute 94, 81.7% in, Claire decides to look after Maisie. Maisie, like the dinosaurs, is one of humanity's creations, like children or technology or pets. And Claire has decided that humanity's creations deserve rights. Does that mean the movie's over? No, more's the pity. This is just the start of Act 3. The final exam is barely anything of an exam. It just finally resolves the question of whether our creations deserve the right to continue living, or whether we have control over them. Early in Act 3, Blue, and I really wish I was making this up, turns into an action hero. The Indoraptor hunts our heroes. Bayona injects an interesting but mismatched sense of gothic grandeur to proceedings, and at minute 107, 93% in, it looks like the Indoraptor has Owen and Maisie dead to rights. Our creations are imperiling each other, and us. Who should show up to save the day but Claire, all fired up and ready to protect Maisie, but needing Blue to come along and finish the job, like the sheriff in a western. With the Indoraptor dispatched, there's only one final decision to make. What should we do with all these dinosaurs in cages that are apparently going to die if we don't let them out? Maisie answers for us. She sets them all free, because she believes, and she shows us, that our creations have the right to freedom. We don't get to control our creations, they have lives of their own. The T-Rex comes out of nowhere to kill Mills. Remember when you could hear a T-Rex coming from a mile away? And Malcolm grumbles about dinosaurs being loose in the world. You remember this isn't a dinosaur, right? And the movie finally, blessedly ends.
Wow, cool.
This movie is bad, mainly because of its lazy and terrible ideas. To run through the most hated things in this movie, it's probably the auction, the overanimated new hybrid, and the human clone idea. You'll notice that all of these things happen in the second half of the movie. But why is the second half of the movie even here? What does it accomplish? At the end of Act 1, the dinosaurs are all about to die because of a volcanic eruption. And at the end of Act 3, the dinosaurs are all about to die because of poison gas or something. The decision to save them was already made back in Act 1. What I'm saying is, why not remove the auction, the clone, and the hybrid in one fell swoop by having the cargo ship run aground just after the midpoint? All these dinosaurs are trapped on the ship, some are escaping, the ship starts sinking, and our heroes, not some random clone girl, but Claire, our protagonist, goddammit, has to make the hard decision about whether to release the dinosaurs. Maybe she's influenced by a child character. Why not bring back Ty or Gray or Zach or Nick from the previous film? Maybe they, as genuine children, could convince Claire to release the dinosaurs. You know, children don't have to be clones to feel like they're being smothered by oppressive parents. That action would get you up to Act 3, which would see the dinosaurs beginning to flood the mainland. And maybe the third act just revolves around our heroes trying to protect some campers at Ground Zero, or trying to capture and kill any raptors on the ship to prevent the worst of the dinosaurs from escaping. But whatever the third act is, it should show us the consequences of the protagonist's decision, not just end on a lazy cliffhanger. So, in summary, J.A. Bayona did as well as could be expected with asinine material, but the festering sheaves of sputum that comprised the script gave him very little room for latitude. The desecration of Michael Crichton's memory has reached a level of Philistinism you rarely see in the modern day. The second time you watch this lobotomized turkey, it's a lot less aggravating because you know to expect the worst of its events. You can focus on the good stuff, like the wunna and the animatronics and the breakout performance from Sermon. Everything else about this movie is a lost cause. Its message isn't even coherent. The Indoraptor was one of our creations. Doesn't she have rights? Was killing her the right thing to do? Not to mention, no one in this movie changes as a result of imbibing the theme. It's just a bunch of stuff that happens to sell expensive Lego sets and other merch. Despite some surface-level craft from Bayona and his creative teams, the movie is artistically bankrupt. Bad story, weak characters, lost potential. This movie is bad, bad equipment for living. Thanks for watching this unusually angry breakdown of the network of distended pustules this franchise has become. If this movie makes you angry, hit the like button in solidarity for what I just had to go through. And if you want to see more breakdowns of good and bad movies, hit the subscribe button.